What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Love Coach Scott Catamas, and it is Friday night, February 11th, and we are approaching Valentine's weekend. And so, of course, the awakening world that we're all a part of is dedicating this weekend to love. But what does love really mean? Not just romantic Hallmark Hall of Fame love, but true love. And so I gotta say that I'm so excited about the people that are going to be on this weekend, because frankly, I've invited some of the people that I have the greatest love for, the greatest respect and admiration for, to really be my colleagues on this journey as we explore what true love really means. And then the big picture. Isn't the most powerful, profound possibility for us to experience would be heaven on earth happening now, in our lifetime, in this moment. It's like the highest form of love that I can imagine. So, in creating this weekend, I am so pleased that I get to collaborate and have as my co-host for the whole weekend one of my absolute favorite human beings on the planet, and that's Larissa Stowe. Larissa and I have been dancing around each other at festivals and such for a long time, but it's only been the last year I've really gotten to know this amazing woman. And she's remarkable. Her balance, she leads a very balanced life. She's a mother of two, been married forever to the same guy, happily. She has obviously a great career, and she has her Shakti Love Warriors. She does a lot. But what I've really discovered is she does it all with love. Larissa, I so admire that about you. You do a lot, and you do it all with a lot of love, even when you're facing challenges in your life. So thank you so much for being my co-pilot and my colleague and my co-creator this weekend.
Thank you, Scott. I adore you. Just what you said about me, it's like getting to know you and just so incredibly inspired by what you model in the world and how you live your life. It's one thing, like we all see Scott in front, of the camera, but like who he is behind the scenes is just profoundly touching the way he moves through life.
Thank you.
So I've really been blessed to get to know you and super grateful to be here and to be here with all of you as well tonight, to be connecting in and to be diving into this really important conversation, about love and bringing that, creating that heaven on earth. What is true love? What is that? Exploring that together.
Larissa, tell us a little bit about your friend that you've brought on tonight.
I would love to. So My beloved friend, Christina Fiore, is one of my dearest friends, soul sisters. Love her, adore her. I don't even know how long we've known each other, to be honest, but it's been a chunk. Like we've known each other for a chunk of change now, right?
At
And
least five. No, actually, at least.
I just
Did you get?
lost
Did you hear me? Uh-oh.
it just went click,
Okay.
click, click, click. I don't know if it was on my end or on your end, but I think you said, did you say 6, 7? I don't,
Yeah, about 6 years at
yeah,
least.
at
Yep.
least, at
Uh-huh.
least. Um, and this woman, as I've gotten to know you over the years more and more, you've been such an inspiration to me. And I'm excited to bring her to you all. She is a life coach, a transformational life coach. She's been doing this for like 35 years. She works with people on a very deep, profound level, a very compassionate, kind, and a very juicy woman. Like, you're just one of those beings that just flows and is just really present. You're always like right there. You're one of those people that we can count on. So it doesn't surprise me, that you're so successful at what you do with others. And you're an amazing writer. So this woman, Christina, that I'm introducing you to, she wrote this book that just came out recently called Supernatural Love Medicine. That's an awesome book. So as you can see, and I have to tell you, I don't really have time to read books in my life. It's so jam-packed, but I have made time for this book because it is so awesome. So you're very inspiring. I had to call you and go, this is like really good. Like there's like a lot of really good stuff in here that people need to know. So, and women especially, men too, but has a lot to do with women and how we can nurture ourselves and all the ways that we can heal and cultivate self-love. So grateful to have you on this show and grateful to share you with everyone here.
Well, thank you. I'm very honored to be here. It's such a treat. It feels like a big love fest already.
It is.
That it is. Oh, welcome, Chris. And we're looking for, whoops, am I muted? Looking forward to hearing from you and learning about your book and getting to know you. So welcome to our Awakening World family.
Thank you so much.
And speaking of our Awakening World family, welcome everybody watching on Facebook and everybody in our Zoom room. And for those of you who are watching on Facebook or on one of the YouTube channels, come on into our Zoom room. Tonight's going to be a very interactive evening. We're going to, share a little bit about our perception of true love and heaven on earth. But then we're going to open it up to the audience, and I will be sharing comments and questions from the audience. We're also going to hear from some of our audience members, including the wonderful wild mystic abbot Jerry Anderson. He's in the house. We're going to hear from Jerry, and we're going to hopefully hear from some of the other people that are in our Zoom room. So if you're watching on Facebook or one of the YouTube channels, come on into the Zoom room. And it's easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com, and register. And when you register, you're going to get the links to all 3 of our weekend shows. We do a show every Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. And every weekend we tackle a particular topic. Obviously, this weekend's topic is all about true love and heaven on earth and the real dynamics there. Next weekend, we're going to be exploring healing and quantum healing, and we have Deepak Chopra with us, and so on and so forth. So definitely join us, become part of the Global Peace Tribe. Okay, I get to now do an introduction of our 4th and final official guest for the evening, and she's family. She's family forever, and it's the Heart Ninja, also known as Emily Auram. And Emily and I had an amazing 5-year live-in relationship. We lived together, we worked together, and obviously we got to know each other very, very, very well. And so because I know her quite well and I've watched her journey, what I want to say about Emily as it relates to tonight is she's one of the most courageous people I know for really demonstrating vulnerability and authenticity. Um, I was born and raised in LA, and I was a theater guy and in the television industry at a really early age. And growing up in LA, there was a lot of glamour, a lot of illusion, and a lot of, really important to have a good persona and a good image. And I was pretty image oriented. And much of my life has been changing that, busting that. My wife, Suchi, was wonderful at busting the image stuff. But whatever Suchi didn't accomplish, Emily completed the job. Yeah, and she gets out her swords, and she is the heart ninja. And if you watch her on Facebook, one day she is tough as nails, and the next day she's, yeah, bawling her eyes out. Whatever is real with Emily is what we get to experience. So, thank you, Emily, for being with us. I'm really grateful for your agreeing to be with us this weekend.
It is such an honor, Scott, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about maybe the ways that we've tried to be loved by crafting an image, and how that maybe we were trying to get our need met for love, and it was getting us away from the sense of true love that we've talked about tonight. So I feel like we have some stuff that we can talk about, to dive into.
Absolutely. And again, everybody, start putting your thoughts, comments in. While we're hearing from our presenters, I will be checking the comments in the Zoom room on Facebook Unify and Facebook Love Coach Academy. So those are our main ones. And I want to thank the Sign Network for bringing this out over about 100 different Facebook groups and pages. So thank you. All right. First question. We'll kind of go in the same order. Larissa, then Christina, then Emily. What's been your journey of true love? Maybe what you thought true love was when you were a little girl, and maybe the different key moments in life as you explored that. And of course, then where are you now with that concept of true love? So we're going to start with my co-host, Larissa.
Well, as Emily was talking about, it's interesting. It does relate a lot to, for me, my journey of authenticity as well. You know, um, as a child, I really did believe in the knight in shining armor, and felt that I was going to have that relationship that I saw in the movies, especially Disney movies. Cinderella, that was a big one for me. Um, and I had the absolute, blessing of meeting my husband when I was really young. We met when I was 18, and is very much like a knight in shining armor kind of character. He is an Eagle Scout. So if you know about the Boy Scouts, if you know about to get to be an Eagle Scout, you got to earn a lot of badges, and it takes a lot of character. He has incredible character. And as amazing as he is, and as an incredible soul as he is, I experienced a Kundalini awakening, started intensely experiencing one in 2006. And we started going like this. Our paths started going off in different directions a bit, because my need to experience intimacy, like multidimensional and not just like 3D, started to expand as my Kundalini was awakening. And it was outrageously painful, outrageously painful to realize that my beloved, that this beautiful soul, my soulmate, could not meet me, and I couldn't meet him in places where we had met so easily before. We even would joke about how we had like the best connubial bliss, because, we were very sexual for years. And then when I had my Kundalini awakening, it was just really challenging to know how to navigate that with him. And what I realized is that I had to do the work on myself. I had to honor what was going on the inside of me. And I had to be really, really honest with him. about it. It was a profound shift in perception about love and about partnership and about true love. I can honestly say that through our journey that we've gone through, we have really learned what it means to have unconditional love, because he's had to put up a lot with me. You know, most men would have just left, I think, the relationship. But because of who he is and who I am, we have been able to navigate that because of the love we have. But what it also did at the same time, it like really turned me, as you brought up at the beginning, Scott, it really turned me towards source, towards like faith, really believing in spirit and going, this is happening for a reason. Like, we're going through this journey for a really important reason. It's not wrong. It's not bad. Even though it's painful. It's what needs to happen. And in that time that we were going through, I would say the hardest part of it, it was like being in the fire. You know, it was so painful. There were moments when I didn't even, it was like, I could feel this emotion welling up. Whew. There were moments when I didn't know if I wanted to be here, because it was like I didn't want to betray him. And yet at the same time, it was like either I just continue to have the relationship we had and completely dishonor myself, or totally go all in, you know, with myself and feel like I was dishonoring him. So it was outrageously challenging. But on the other side, in trusting spirit, it really became, I would say, it cracked me open, and I think it cracked him open to whole other levels of experiencing who we really are, like authentically who we are. And that authentic self, the hard part about this is that, you know, who we are in this moment, who I am in this moment, could change again. You know, we don't know where we are going to grow into, because if we're really alive, if we're fully juicy, if we're fully living this life, we are going to grow. We're going to continue to grow. And we don't know which way, just like which way that plant's going to grow. You know, we don't necessarily know how we're going to grow, and our partner may not be growing the same way, even if they're the most amazing human that you've ever met in your life. So, yeah, this has been, you know, I could talk a long time, obviously, about this, and I don't want to, I want to hear from everybody else, but it's been a process of really honoring the depth of who I am while having compassion for and honoring those around me and finding how we can weave that together. That is what true love has been for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I just really appreciate your vulnerability and sharing your journey, and the reminder that, you know, it's not this fantasy that we were fed as children of, and they lived happily ever after. That you and your husband have been together, you have 2 children together, one is on the older side, one is a little one, and all that you've gone through, and it's a constant process of learning these lessons of love, learning deeper level of connection and commitment and acceptance. And
Yes.
and the journey continues, yeah?
And it continues, yes. It's ever unfolding. Ever unfolding.
Thank you, Larissa. I'm going to read a couple of comments, and then I want to hear what Christina has to say. Dorina Joy, who's one of our wonderful regulars, writes, "True love is inside each and every one of us. It bears it all, brings it all, endures it all, and triumphs it all." Beautifully put. It can be the hardest thing to live through, and the best and most amazing one, too. And Charles, who's coming to us on Unify, talks about, well, is heaven on earth meaning, is it the same as what we talk about in the Bible as the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven? And he says, if that's the case, it is already here. Yes, Charles, you're getting to the punchline. We'll get there a little bit later on, I think. Let's hear what Christina and then what Emily have to say.
Okay. Well, first of all, I just have to say, Larissa, I love you so much. And I am so honored to have been a small part of your journey, just witnessing your going through the fire with such integrity, such grace, such honesty. And I just want to just say thank you for your friendship, for the beautiful way in which you and your partner have navigated through the uncertainties together. So just wanted
Thank
to
you.
bring that forward.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Yes. So I'd like to start off with just a little story, a visual. You know, when people pass from the screen of life and they're sent back because their journey is not complete here on the earth, oftentimes they'll say to the people around them that they didn't want to come back because they came from such a beautiful place, unconditional love and such multidimensionality that it was just so enriching and expanding to their soul that coming back to such a harsh environment was difficult. But what that is so insightful about is that's where we came from. We came from unconditional love for our souls, where we were multidimensional beings, where we were filled with such grace and acceptance for who we truly were, or who we truly are in our highest sense. So when we come through the birth canal, we come through this dense, narrow passageway, and we're confronted with all these sensations, light and sound and pressure and, you know, gravity and all these things. And we develop what I call embodiment shock. We forget our prior sublime existence. So everything as infants all the way up, you know, to our adolescence, teen years, we start to look from our spiritual world now into the outer world, and we start to categorize based on what we've been exposed to, that that's the way life is, right? So if we're exposed to abuse, or we're exposed to a wonderful environment, we start to think about ourselves that way. For instance, if parents are having discord, we start to think, well, maybe it's my fault, you know, maybe I'm an imposition. Whatever we're exposed to, we start to categorize. So how that relates to our lives is that those become our life laws, and those life laws become our drivers and subconsciously, and then they become our attraction principle. So how that relates to my life is that I was brought up in a wonderful childhood upbringing with two very loving parents. But my brother was always out doing things, and I just worshiped my brother. He was always out doing things. And I felt sort of desperate to have a relationship with him. And it sort of became this trajectory in my life where I wanted something that I couldn't have. And so I was always going after these unattainable relationships. And finally, I just decided to settle, and I ended up with someone who was a really great partner in terms of logistical things, but as far as feeding my heart and my soul, I wasn't listening. So I ended up with someone very controlling, someone very stuck in his ways. And after about 7.5 years and 2 kids later, I decided this wasn't really meeting the honesty and the authenticity of my soul. And because of the nature of having felt really stuck in a controlling relationship, I subconsciously went out to bring in relationships that fed that other part of me. The free spirits, the artists, the creatives, the expressives, and ultimately, in many cases, the ladies' men. And so I got my heart broken a few times. And I realized that there was a part of me that was trying to rise up to be something that they wanted me to be. And so after those experiences, I realized, I need to take a moment to really be in self-appreciation for who I truly am. Who am I? What are these things about myself that I really appreciate? And what are the non-negotiable standards I live by? I really had to get clear on what are my non-negotiables? Who am I? And what, I took a look at the things that weren't working for me and turned them into a positive. So I decided, one of my non-negotiables was consistent kindness. Another one was living by my word, being in my integrity. And I started to embody all of these qualities where I got really strong in this power of presence, where there was no more room for dissension. There was no more room for attracting those kinds of relationships. So I took some time to just be with myself, about 5 years, to be in my own zone and really to take pleasure in getting to know myself in new and magical ways and starting to do things that I never gave myself permission to do before. And so that brings me to having moved from LA proper to Long Beach. And someone suggested to me that I should go to a yoga class at Larissa Stowe's place. And I almost didn't go because I was exhausted, had had a full day of work, and I was trying to talk my way out of it. But I said, you know what? I need to connect. I need to make some connections. And I've heard nothing but wonderful things about Larissa, so I must go. And I went with an open heart, and there was only one man in the yoga class and about 12 other women.
Yep.
And by the end of that class, there was just this undeniable connection.
Mm-hmm.
And we were having a conversation, went to lunch the next day, and I found out he was in a 12-year relationship. So for 2 years, we had this friendship with this kind of sexual tension going on, but I knew that I needed to stand very strong in my standards. And so we remained friends in our integrity for 2 years until we realized that it was time. He went to Bali with Larissa in a big group and came back a new man and wanted to create something new.
Sure did.
I realized that the big piece for me was standing so strong in my uncompromising standards that I chose to embody, that I chose to model, and that energy started to vibrate out to become an attraction principle. So that's that part of the story. And if Larissa wants to pipe in later, she can tell the rest of it.
Great. Thank you, Christina. And we also look forward to hearing about your book. So thank you. Yeah, and congratulations on both. Anyway.
Thank you so much.
Well, okay, so now we've heard from 2 women that are in marriage, and now we get to hear from kind of a different way of doing life, at least at this time, and that is from my beloved friend Emily. And Emily, I so appreciate that you bring a whole different way of doing love right now. And so share with us kind of your journey of love.
Whew. Well, can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. Well, I've been feeling really nervous because I'm sitting over here and I'm really feeling into how vulnerable my journey has been growing up. And I just have some of these fears coming up that you'll judge me for sharing what I'm going to share. And so I just wanted to say that like I have some fear of judgment and shame coming up, and also feeling nervous that I'm not going to do it perfectly or share the right thing. So that's kind of coming up. And also my story's kind of dark, but it also feels like it's so powerful to my hero's journey. And I want to preface before I say this is I'm afraid of, by sharing what I'm going to share with you, that I'm going to betray my parents, that somehow I'm going to say something that's going to hurt them, or by revealing my vulnerable process. So I just want to say that I love my dad. I love my mom. I'm not a victim here. And that's kind of what's coming up. But I grew up with a mom that had a big meth addiction and a lot of drugs and alcohol on both sides. My dad left when I was 5 and went very kind of Republican conservative. And I split my growth growing up that either I was rescuing addicts to survive or to feel loved. That was how I would get my needs met. I would consistently control by morphing and changing myself to be loved and accepted and not be criticized by my father. And it was like nobody wanted to talk about the addiction, denial, and my dad didn't want to face it because of his guilt. And so just a lot of trauma, and seeing my mom get beat and like her back and forthness between people pleasing and then avoiding and shutting down and then changing herself to be loved. So just like really twisted form of what love is. And so I've had to really do a lot of healing to let go of feeling responsible that I'm here to rescue my mom, save her life, be her caretaker, and really recognize what are the things that I've done to change myself to be loved, right? Out of safety, survival, and also belonging and acceptance. What's out of that sense of fear, and trauma, and what's my true authentic self? Like Larissa said, what's my authenticity? What is truly, who am I? Who am I beyond my coping strategies? Who am I beyond the things that how I've changed myself to be loved or my trauma? And how do I get back to really knowing who I am, loving myself, whatever that is, our truth? Because so often it's like we are so scared that we'll be rejected or abandoned, and we'll constantly do anything to be loved and accepted at the expense of our authenticity, right? At the expense of what we know in our soul or our heart that is our truth. And it takes a lot of courage to walk that path, to really walk the path of what I call the heart ninja, to live in honoring truly who we are, and then being able to bring that out into the world, and also support people to find their authenticity and come into what I mean. When we come into our full self and love ourselves, then we're able to really encourage that for others. We're able to show up from a really full, authentic place instead of one of trauma and drama and fear. And we're able to really build loving, bonded connections with each other. What really constitutes collaborative love and working together and showing up as our true selves. So I guess I'll just leave it with that. But what I wanted to share is right before I got on this call, I got this little tea message, and it just feels so perfect for this show. And what it says is the purpose of life is to know yourself, right? What I said, like truly know what our authentic self is, to truly know what that is, to love yourself, despite our shame and our fear and all of the feelings that we have that we often hide, our shadow, that we can love that. We can come into this exquisite sense of love and compassion for ourselves, and then be able to radiate that out to others. Trust yourself to know that we're good, to know that the path of our virtues and our integrity is good, right? To trust that, and to be yourself. And that feels like that ends the whole authenticity piece. So with that said, thank you.
Well, thank you, Emily. And no judgment. I love and appreciate you so much. And, you are forever family. Absolutely. I want to briefly, before we get into the next round of questions, again, I just want to encourage everybody watching, give us your thoughts, give us your comments, give us your questions. I love on Friday nights and on Sunday mornings now, because it's a Zoom meeting, we could be very interactive with each other.
Yeah.
True love, I mentioned before that I think it's really a terrible thing that happens to many children, and that is the great lie that they're told when they're little of they lived happily ever after. And we live in this world that gives us so many fantasies and doesn't usually teach what true love really is, which is devotion and acceptance. I'm a coach, and I've coached about 1,000 couples now and a few thousand individuals. And you know what? We all want to be accepted. We all want to be fully loved and accepted for who we are. And the interesting thing is that we can most grow and evolve when we're on that foundation of unconditional acceptance. You know, the child whose parents love and accept him is most likely to be able to really go out and succeed because they have that foundation of safety.
Yeah.
Whereas the children that didn't have that unconditional love and acceptance, or the people that are in relationship where they're constantly feeling criticized or judged or made wrong, they're the least likely to be able to really grow and flourish, or as beloved Larissa likes to say, to in bloom, because they're having to protect themselves. You know, and I want to give a shout out to any of you watching, whether you're watching live or those of you watching the replay, because a lot of people are going to be watching this replay. Some of you had to grow up hypervigilant of constantly making sure you were safe, not being able to trust that your mother, your father, the people in your life that were supposed to love you were safe. And so growing up with that hypervigilance, that constant having to walk on eggshells or be awareness, that's a real hard road. And I want to acknowledge that path and the difficulty of that path. And I know that's a path that Emily has walked. And we all have our own unique journey of what I believe true love is, which is really truly learning to love and accept ourselves. And of course, we still look for, most of us, I certainly do, I'm 66, and I've got good self-esteem, and I have parents that loved me, and I still look for validation. I liked what Larissa had to say tonight. I still have a certain part of that really feeds me and is important. But I can say that as I'm maturing, as I am evolving, I'm learning more and more and more how to really fill that space within myself. So when I do hear it from Larissa or Emily or someone, it feels great, but I don't need it like I needed that validation earlier in life. And ultimately, isn't true love really truly loving and accepting ourselves? So I'll kind of end my part on that, and I'm going to bring our other friends on for a moment. I'll bring all three of you on for a minute. I'm going to ask the next question, which is kind of the other part of our theme for the weekend, which is, how can true love create heaven on earth? So maybe a definition for each of you of what you believe heaven on earth to be, and then how can true love in your own life or in your perception of reality create that? Okay? So we'll go to Larissa next.
That is a very provocative question, right? For all of us,
Yeah.
to really feel into. Well, I have to say that, what you brought up, what everyone's bringing up is actually this word of acceptance. And I think that speaking to radical, like actually not even just acceptance, but like radical self-acceptance is what I've been playing with in my life. And I've noticed that in the past, like when I was younger, I really had an idea of what spirituality was, like, even though I've always fundamentally been, very spiritual. Yeah, both, like I heard you speak to it, Scott, about like the idea of like what you look like in the world, that persona, and Emily, you were speaking to that as well a bit. And I definitely can say that I have had that. And it's been an incredible journey of allowing myself to be seen, like really, really seen. Um, because in allowing myself to be seen, that's like saying that I'm accepting myself as I am. It's like I have radical self acceptance for myself. I'm allowing you to see all these aspects of myself that in the past I would have considered to be weak, not sexy, not this, not that, right? And um, I am I am feeling that heaven on earth within myself, like more and more. And the irony to me is that I'm feeling more vulnerable. I'm feeling more awkward, like more gawky in many ways because of that vulnerability. And yet I'm like, oh my God, I could just finally be who I am, which is that radical self-acceptance. It creates that space of love. I think it's like the very first step towards truly embodying love. And when I say embodying love, I mean embodying heaven on earth, because to me, heaven and love are one and the same. There really is no difference between this concept of heaven and love. So I've been experiencing that in my gawkiness and my like feeling, like, oh my God, I'm putting it all out there now. Like I'm gonna there's this fear of projection, right? That some people are gonna go, oh my God, Larissa's not who I thought she was. She doesn't have her shit together like I thought she was. I saw her as this singer that, had it all together. And I'm like, fuck it. It's like, it is time to let that shit go. And I recognize that's not just for myself anymore. Like when I say, this is who I am, all of it, right? There's this level of intimacy, and I know that it's giving permission to the world. I know it's giving permission to my beloveds, to my kula, to my tribe, to my sangha. It's like, yes, we can let it all hang out, we can be who we are. And that truly is heaven on earth, because it allows us to be more intimate. That vulnerability creates a space for deeper intimacy, because if there's no vulnerability, there's no intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
So that is my experience. And I know I'm going to try to keep this short because, we want to share, all of us want to share. But my newest piece of vulnerability is I just shared on the Shakti Love Warriors. Yesterday, was it already? It was yesterday. I shared one of my shadows, that I did a deep dive and unearthed another one of my shadows that I was like, oh my God, really? There's another big chunky piece? Yes, there is. And that chunky piece that I unearthed is that I've always thought was kind of cute. I always thought, okay, I've got this vanity piece where I want to look good. I don't want to lose my pretty, and I thought that, I can be with that. I can be with that vicey part of me. But what I realized that it was not just cute. It was actually a bit deadly in my psyche, because what I realized it was tied to is a fear of aging, of getting older. And, no matter what you do, as you get older, you're not going to be able to keep, what you have in the same way. It evolves, it changes, everything is growing. Things do not stay the same. So I saw that, wow, I have been afraid of being really honest about my age and about aging. And I don't really talk about my age publicly. And yesterday was the first time I came out publicly, and I said, okay, everybody, I am, and before I tell you my age here, I'll say that I realize that I have to. It's like I have to be honest about that too, because I need to embrace getting older if I'm going to live to be older, or else I'm going to find some way to opt out if I don't fully embrace that I'm aging. And not only that, I realize again this intimacy and this opportunity to connect deeper with people who also have this fear. And for those who don't have a fear, who can support me in how they don't have a fear, and those who do have a fear, how we can go, okay, we can do this, right? So yeah, it's and I see also being able to just own it, like own my freaking age to empower those younger people too, so that they're not so afraid of it as well, to be like a warrior with it. So I'm gonna say I am 53 years old. And that is like something new, and that again is like creating heaven on earth. I'm embracing exactly where I am, and this is the youngest I'll ever be today, and I know that.
Are you just a young'un, only 53? It's all relative. It really is. It's all relative, you know.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate your courage in coming forward. And each of us have our own unique things to be courageous about. So we're going to get to Christina and Emily. I want to read a couple comments that have come in. Um, Nancy writes that same thing. You're also a young'un. Pam writes 53 and you are freaking beautiful, Larissa.
Thank
Um, Lenora writes, not just acceptance, but acceptance of what is unique. This authenticity and vulnerability has such value in this world. Together with an awareness of our oneness, our differences allow richness and depth in all the ways we can experience and to express the divine.
you.
Laura writes, it is important to give women a future to grow into. I am 73 and I love telling people that. So thank you.
Yay.
Um,
Yes.
I want to read a few comments, and there's a couple of questions that have come in on Unify, so thank you. We love questions. And Christina and Emily, if you want to tackle these questions as part of what you want to share, great. Otherwise, I'll do it after you talk. Um, so Cameron asks, can you explain what practice opens the heart to accept love fully in life? How do we love ourselves and others if we are in a situation of anger or in pain? It's a great question. And then another one that came in is even with self-love, how do we change the hypervigilance patterning and wiring? That might be a good one for you to address, Emily or Louisa. Deg writes, separation is a delusion, yes. Oneness is fundamental. One day there will be world peace. Thank you very much. And then Patricia writes, I love your fuck it attitude. Anne writes, heaven here on earth. Is this based on radical self-acceptance? If we don't radically accept the person we are, is heaven absent? Is it what we are working towards? Good point. Good question. So, Larissa, before I go to Emily and Christina, anything you want to respond to in what I just shared from some of our friends?
Well, I love that question. It's like about the radical self-acceptance. I really do feel like it is a major step, to begin to, in my experience, because talk about tools. Okay, so that was a question. Like, what are the tools, right, to get us into our heart every day? We're talking every day for years now. I've missed one day in like 700 and something days of doing daily spiritual practice, of doing the breath work, doing the moving meditation. And with that moving meditation, there's all that shadow stuff starts to come up. It's amazing because we get quiet. I get quiet enough to hear it and to be present with it. So there's always these pieces that come up that are like, not so nice, like some not so nice voices that come up into my consciousness. And I have found that rather than disowning them and trying to get rid of them, instead being curious about them and going, okay, come here. It's like, okay, we're going to sit together here. We're going to get underneath the hood of this and we're going to really accept this part of myself that in the past I might want to disown. And in that embracing of a part of myself, like as an example, vanity, a lot of us are like, oh, that's bad. It's bad to have these, these thoughts, right? Or, feelings of God, I feel selfish. We have thoughts of feeling too selfish. It's like, instead of going, it's like, come here, and being with that and having compassion for the parts of myself. That compassion is born of that acceptance, the first step being acceptance, inviting it in to be with it. Then it naturally, if I invite it in and I'm like, it's okay, just like a little kid who's acting out, if I invite the child over rather than, would you get the hell out of here, you're bugging the shit out of me, right? Instead, if I'm like, come here, sweetheart, come here, if they're like, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about this, what's going on? What's going on? Do you need a hug? It's the same thing with the self. So inviting, having that radical self-acceptance, it turns into love. It turns into compassion. The compassion becomes love. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank
Works
you
for
so much.
me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm actually going to go to Emily next, and then Christina, just because I know that Emily's journey has also, kind of reflected some of the questions that came in, and especially the question about how to manage hypervigilance, how to manage self-love. And so, Emily, I
Hmm.
kind of put the spotlight on you, and then we'll hear from
Yeah, let's
Christina.
start there. Let's start there. So when we come from a place where we don't feel safe, right? We either have to change ourselves to be loved and accepted because we'll be criticized or hurt emotionally, or in a sense, there's abuse or trauma. And so connection equals danger. So we need to protect ourselves, is to know that we are not our childhood now. We are not the past experiences now. And come into the commitment of learning to self-regulate and find safety and love in your body now. And that is a unique process for everyone to find out what that is for you. What does it feel like to actually, attune to my system? And classic example, one hand on heart, one hand on belly, really doing the polyvagal work of the breath work, circulating the energy and allowing ourselves to come into that parasympathetic nervous system. I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm safe. I'm inherently good. Like, there's a lot of stories of like, I'm bad or I'm wrong, or if I don't do this, then I'm not good enough, all these stories. So how do we come back into finding that place of like, I'm good here and I'm okay, no matter how I feel, no matter what part of me is showing up. Like Larissa says, is like the radical self-acceptance piece, while learning to get our system to get grounded and centered, and finding those touchstones of love and feeding ourselves the words and the touch that really allow us to come into feeling comforted and loved and taken care of. And that's a process. It's like Larissa said, it's like when you wake up and you do your spiritual practices, it's that commitment that I am going to choose love at all cost, self-love first, over my reactive coping strategies, my fears, my coping strategies that I've developed from the past to survive. I want to choose a new way, and it starts here. So I think that one question is what came up, Scott.
Beautiful. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Emily. Thank you. Christina, what would you like to share? What's alive for you?
Wow. Well, thank you both for sharing such rich experiences. And, you know, getting back to what you were saying, Larissa, about the vanity state and the aging and all of that, I have to honestly say, I'm looking right now at myself and I'm just kind of going, because I feel like a very, very young spirit. And yet I'm in my late 60s, and I do have to grow and, accept that piece of myself and love that part of myself and not hide that part of myself. And, if I look back at all of my life experiences, I realize that at every stage of my life, I was peeling the layer of an onion, and peeling the layer of, for me, of the inner critic. And I realized that the only thing that matters, like if we've ever felt love, the only thing that matters is that essence. You know, even if we have love for a puppy, you know, it's that essence, just connecting with that essence, whatever it is that we adore and appreciate, and turning that around and giving that to ourselves. We are a spark in the ocean of God's divine love consciousness, and everything else around us or within us is just theater because love is the only thing that is real. And so as I've applied that to my life, one of the things that I've done is, you know, the tangible thing that helps me get connected to love is to place my hands over my heart and just take a deep breath. You know, Greg Braden has said, the New Thought leader, Greg Braden, has said that in order for us as a species to evolve to the next level, we must gain our connection to the culture of the heart. And there are over 40,000 specialized cells, actually neurons, that are located in the heart that are independent from the brain. And the heart has a tremendous capacity to tell the brain how to think, because the brain was actually designed to be the servant of the heart. So the more that we can engage ourselves with our heart, with the wisdom of the heart, and actually one thing I do is I actually tap on my heart chakra, my thymus, and I say positive things to myself. I love myself. I forgive myself. I trust myself. And when I tap on my heart and I'm saying these positive things, I'm saying, I love myself and I love the opportunity that I've been given to have this life, to do life, you know, and to live as I'm living the highest version of myself. And that's a journey to get there. But I'm loving myself for that journey. I'm forgiving myself for temporarily forgetting who I truly am. And I trust myself that I can recalibrate and get back to that place where I am feeling good about myself. So as I'm tapping and I'm saying these positive things, one thing Larissa reminded me to do every once in a while is to say, what would love do? You know, what would self-respect do in this moment? And tap on the heart. Because when you tap on the heart and you say positive things, you are literally recoding your cellular agreements. You're sending positive messages to your cells, and through the neural network from the heart to the brain, you're reprogramming your brain cells to actually align with that vibratory frequency of love. So hopefully that's not too scientific or metaphysical, but that has really helped me, and it's helped a lot of my clients to just use that very simple mechanism of tapping on the heart and saying positive things and sending new messages to the cells, because the inner critic can just go amok if we are in our monkey minds. So just reminding ourselves by that simple tap, by the breath, and just, again, reminding ourselves that we came from love. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And yeah, in fact, I was so inspired by what Christina just said about tapping the heart that I'm going to play a short little 2-minute video. It's a recent creation of Love Coach Academy combining with Global Peace Tribe. It's one of our favorite musical artists. You've seen her on our shows probably, Johanna Beekman. And I love the Beatles, but I actually think they kind of got one thing wrong. And that was the anthem of All You Need Is Love, which is a great melody and a great message, but we actually do need more than love. But what I think is, what I wish, my fantasy, is that it would be do everything with love. Do everything with love.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Right? Because I think we all have known people that meant well, they thought they were doing the right thing, but if they were doing it with self-righteousness, if they were doing it with anger, if they were doing it from a place of reactivity, it actually pours gasoline onto the fire. Most people who go to war believe that God is on their side, and it entitles them to kill people. Most couples that I work with that say or do hurtful things feel entitled to do that. And so when we really learn to do things with love, we learn if I'm not doing it with love, I got to pull back. I got to pull back and get back into my practice, like Larissa was talking about, so that I am doing this with love. The other example is we've all experienced people that might have menial jobs, but they do it with so much love. You know, we've all experienced that waiter or waitress who just does it with so much love, right? Or the food that mom made or somebody made for you, and they made it with so much love. It tasted so good, right? So I'm going to invite us all to tap, and I'm gonna go to gallery view. So I encourage people who have their cameras on, turn your cameras on, so we can see you. And I will. We're all going to tap, and I see a lot of friends, Dr. and Mrs. Future here, and there's Paul McFarlane and Pam and Anna Ohm. So I invite all of you to tap away as we do everything with love.
Love, 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 love. Love is everything. Love is everything. Love, 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 love. Yeah. Love is everything. Love is everything.
And of course, in a way, that's kind of my Valentine to all the people you saw who are people that I've had the good chance to get to know, that I experience do everything with love, certainly when they've been on the shows that we've hosted. I want to read a few comments, and then I'm going to bring Mystic Abbot Jerry on so that we hear another example of kind of thoughts about today's topic. But Dorina Joy wrote something really interesting. She says, isn't it interesting that in other cultures and languages, there are more words for love, like in Greek, where there are 6 different ones that come to mind. Eros, which is sexual passion, philia, deep friendship, ludus, or playful love, agape, love for everyone, pragma, long-standing love, and I don't know how to pronounce this last one, philotia, or love of the self. And yeah, that's a good point. Alora offers a practice. Thank you, Alora. She says, one of the best practices I ever learned in terms of partner love is to go horizontal when you talk with each other. She said that she learned that when your head is above your head will lead the conversation. When your head and your heart are on the same level, your heart can talk. So that's a good one. Reminds me of the belly-to-belly work that is very popular kind of in our world. George Noble, we love you, George, writes, blessings from Santa Rosa. True love to me is an aspiration, a work in progress for most of us. Kindness, a heartful sound, authentic being, the ongoing practice of radical gratitude is so important. Grateful for all that we are and all that we must face. Dr. and Mrs. Future, who do most of the videos for Global Peace Tribe and are 2 of my longest running friends, right? Would you say you can only love someone else as much as you can love yourself? And I think that's generally true. I think that to the degree that we truly love ourselves is the degree we can authentically receive love from another, and again, hopefully we're then giving from that overflow. Steph Scott writes, I love that, Christina. I'm a therapist working with kids in the foster care system, and I teach them about putting their hands on the heart, but will now also add tapping. Nancy talks about loving another, bringing out more self-love, and that creating the beautiful cycle, climbing up Jacob's ladder. Just going to read a couple more comments. Leading by the heart, absolutely. So with that, speaking of heart, I want to introduce the mystic abbot Jerry. You see him dancing and moving to all the songs and the music on our Saturday night shows. He is the wild abbot of the mystic monastery, and he is the steward of 10,000 acres of pristine land in Puerto Rico. So, Jerry, welcome. Please unmute, and I'd love to hear what you might have to say about tonight's topic and theme. And there you go.
Well, it's a joy to spend the evening with the Global Peace Tribe and our oneness group around the planet here. A couple of thoughts of mine was, first, heaven seems to be a kind of like a term that we have inherited from the outsider self kind of generation, that in heaven, to me, had to be almost a new kind of a definition. So for the monks, I use the term heaven is where you don't want to change anything. Just a simple way to say it. And I like the anagram home, HOME, as heaven on Mother Earth. And I think the most important thing is that we're talking about this love affair with another person. Really, we really need to get to the point where Jesus talked about that it's a marriage inside of us, the side of us that's receiving and the side of us that's giving, so that we're kind of like a bank account of receiving and passing it on. So it's like, as we stay in that marriage in ourself, between our own male side, what I tell the monks is our doing side, and our female side, which is our being side. And I say oftentimes there's a reason that we're not called human doings, that we have to make sure that our being side is really being nurtured. And sometimes we get little, especially on this show, a little overcarried onto the female side of love, okay? Love is a nurturing side, and we've talked about that tonight. But the father side of love is, come on, you can do a little bit better. I know you have it in you, this kind of a challenging type of love that comes from the father side of a child growing up. So I think we have to constantly remember both sides. You know, yes, we nurture ourselves and self-love and all this kind of stuff. At the same time, we have to challenge ourselves as to how do we serve our planet, our human family, and so forth.
Beautiful, thank you, Jerry. I'm gonna bring on Emily and Larissa and Christina. So we're all kind of on camera here for a minute. I just want to open it up to anything that any of you would like to respond to, Jerry, or any of the other thoughts that came in.
Well, I have to champion that because, you know, love, as you say, it's not only being in a field of grace within oneself, but love is an action. And love is being able to be proactive, where you are moving forward with an energy that is greeting life with an open heart and greeting life with the field of possibilities, and then taking that action. You know, when I'm working with clients and they go through a whole retreat with multiple therapists and so forth, and they get to a place where I feel like I'm swimming in all of this divine love. And I said, well, let's roll up our sleeves. And what are we going to do about it? How are you going to take that home with you? How are you going to apply it to your daily life? So I really love what you said, because it is the balance of the masculine and feminine principle within us that comes, brings love full circle into a field of action.
Beautiful, thank you. Emily, Larissa, take it away.
I totally affirm that too. Absolutely what you're saying. I think it's not like a either or. When I do this self-love, when I work on myself, it gives me the energy to come from that place of unconditional love, and then I act on that. So it's rather than it just being like a feminine thing about loving the self, it's like it's both. But if I'm not right with myself, then when I take action and I'm like, okay, go do this, and it's coming from my head, rather than from that alignment of the divine masculine and the divine feminine, like the holy matrimony, so to speak. Does that make sense, Jerry?
Yep.
So it's that union within. So thank you for bringing this up, because I have a feeling, if you think we're thinking that as we're speaking so much about this radical self-acceptance, that others might be thinking that too. But it's more that most of us, humanity itself right now, has been very much doing things from a place of shoulds. Like I should get out there and I should go change the world. And if we're moving from that place without first that radical self-acceptance and that love, then it can, as we see, come out sideways, right? And then a lot of shame can come up for people. So it's like, let's bring them together. Let's really get the divine masculine and the divine feminine together. Let's, this is a dance. This is a love affair. The holy matrimony within.
Thank you. Emily, I'm putting the spotlight on you.
Well, I just want to just say that I'm all about that. That is the core foundation of my work. What I call it Quing. Qwing, Kwing, if you're male identified, and it's aligning our sex and our heart and our soul together, the unification of the queen, the king energy, and I call the magical inner child. And so when we have those parents, those inner energies that are coalescing, and the king is serving the queen, and there is that beautiful royal marriage, then there's all these parts, right? There are vulnerable parts and our tender parts and our primal parts and our, all the parts that make up our inner child, our magical parts, our light parts, our creative parts, and coming back into holding the innocence of the purity that we are beneath the conditions, beneath the shoulds, beneath the fear, guilt, and shame, right? To bring out that magical inner child and for it to be held by that inner marriage, right? And to be like, yeah, you get to be this magical, and we're going to set some boundaries with you, right? We're going to say, you can only have this much candy today, and the more that we can do that, like Larissa was saying, is that we can then actually come from that place of fullness, right? We can come and we can also support other people to find that fullness. And then we can come out and we co-create that love together, right? We start collaborating from this full, really integrous, yummy connection with ourselves. And we want that for other people. And we start coming from this really rich field of where we can really take it to the next level of innovation and creative expression and creating heaven on earth.
Beautiful, beautiful. I've been putting into there we go, into the chat box in our Zoom room and into Facebook Unify and Facebook Love Coach Academy, the bios of Larissa, Christina, and Emily. And that's where you can get the links to the websites, learn more about their offerings. We've got about another 15 minutes. So if anybody has any thoughts or questions, let us know. To Anna Ohm, I sent you guys a chat message because I saw you waving your hands. Take a look at the chat message I sent you. And if anybody has thoughts or questions, now would be a good time to pop them in there. Dorina Joe asks questions to all the beautiful, wild, and wise panelists. Thank you, Dorina Joy. What was your deepest self-realization about love? Great question. What was your deepest self-realization about love? Larissa?
Well, Jerry, my deepest realization about love. You said love itself, yes?
The question is, what was your deepest self-realization about love?
Okay. Was that I really had to love myself, like really find um, how I could really be completely in here fully. Um, and I didn't realize how negative, even for somebody, again, I feel like I've grown up like being a champion for love my entire life. And yet a lot of that, the negative self-talk, a lot of the criticism, critical mind was, and really learning how to love this self so that I can really be a force of nature in the world, to be absolutely in alignment and be real and not be a phony baloney about, you know, being out there and being that love in the world, like having it be aligned and turning that into taking action in the world. So that I would say that is has been my biggest realization, that I had to love me in order to really love others, like for real, and to love life for real, and to want to be here in this body and to see that this life matters.
Thank you. Well, Bonnie's asking me to answer. So, you know, what comes to my mind as far as a self-realization about love? I've always thought of myself as a very spiritual, loving guy. And a big turning point in my life was when I met Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication. And I was actually hired to do a series of videos and a TV project with him. And we traveled together for 3 weeks. I met him down in Orange County, California, and we literally traveled all the way up and landed in Seattle, Washington. And he had all these gigs on the way. So I spent 3 weeks staying in hotel rooms with them, eating meals with them, videotaping him. And one day after he gotten to know me a little bit, we were having a meal. And he said, "You know what you are, Scott? You are a change jackal. You are always trying to make things better, but there's a jackal quality of that. It's judgmental to think that it's up to you to make things better or to change people." And it was really humbling and definitely embarrassing, and of course very accurate. And he said, "Here's a challenge. Just notice how many times a day you have a judgmental thought." Now, judgments aren't even necessarily negative. It might be, "Wow, she's really beautiful. He's really cool." Those are still judgments. And then, of course, when do you have negative judgments? But just notice how many judgmental thoughts you have. And he kind of went through all the different types of judgments that we might have. So I committed to doing that. Whoa. Well over 100 judgmental thoughts a day. Well over 100. And I thought I was spiritual. I thought I was a loving guy. And so for me, that self-realization of the awareness of how many judgments I had each day of myself and of others. And so that was a big wake-up call for me, recognizing how judgmental I am and how judgmental we can be. And then as I really was meeting Marshall is when I kind of transitioned from Scott, the writer, director, producer guy, into Scott, the love coach, the relationship coach. And that's what I've seen, is that the toxicity in relationships, it's not because there are differences with people. It's because the way they talk about those differences is in a way that's perceived or experienced as being criticized, judged, blamed, shamed. So that's kind of what comes up for me with that question. And Christina, Emily, do you want to tackle that?
Well, I think that's a powerful piece that you just shared. And I think what comes to mind for me is that I'm learning how to fire the false prophets, the inner critics inside of me. You know, you're fired. And and literally have a sense of humor about it. We take our lives so seriously. And that has been a journey for me, because I can beat myself up just as well as the next person. And to just kind of catch myself in the act, like, wow, look at that one, almost have a third party conversation with myself. Look at what she just did. I have a little humor about it. The more I find that I can, be a little bit lighter about the process that I may be going through, and to be able to help other people not take themselves quite so seriously. The world is a very serious place in many regards right now, with all of the divisions going on and everything. How can we bring some levity and some lightness into the world? I think that that's my deepest realization of love, is how can we, we came from original joy. We came from original innocence and original love. How can we bring that in by cutting ourselves some slack and by giving other people grace? And the more we do that, life just flows better.
Beautiful. Thank you, Christina. Thank you. Emily, you're up.
I just want to say yes to what Christina said, is that bringing in the play. I've been really, like, a lot of the work I've been doing with women now is getting women to escalate their shadowy parts, the parts that they have a lot of shame around. So like their inner bitch, or their, the part of them that feels like really shy and like doesn't want to be seen because they want to be like really perfect. And like, they really like, and just really going into their inner child aspects, or like, the, I want to be rescued. Just come. I'm so hurt. And I'm just like, every man has always betrayed me, and just going into our parts and just like turning up the dial, and when we turn up the dial on our parts, we let go of the shame, and there's a way that it disarms things, and we can start to play with them and play and even find pleasure in our shadows. That is kind of been a creative landscape that I've been playing with, and also helping a lot of women just go into, even with our parts that we judge, so like for instance, I have one client right now who's really, she likes to commiserate, she likes to talk about like why her life is messed up and all the things that she's been through. And she likes to collect that, empathy and validation for that. And she's like, wow, like I'm really addicted to suffering from my past. Like I am masochistic, like there's a part of me that gets off on this. And it's like really like being able to admit that you get off on these certain shadowy parts of yourself almost gives you agency to play with it and to work with it and to bring it out of the dark and into the light. And we can, it's really, again, it's almost like the divine comedy. I don't know where that's from, Dante or whatever, but like seeing this whole experience is, and that doesn't mean to disown the shadow or like the hard stuff, but to see the level of like, wow, this is a dream reality that's really quite interesting. There's a lot going on here. So that's what I have to say about that.
Beautiful. Don't go away, because I'm going to go to your website. So Emily talks a lot about play. And boy, if you want to see a website that's filled with a lot of play, it's hers. Tell us about Quing and what we're going to find on this website, and what you're doing, and the launch that you're doing.
So I work in the realms of pleasure and sexuality for women, really getting them into coming back into their bodies and reigniting their pleasure and doing ritualistic work, both internally and also loving and honoring their bodies, getting them into their power, getting them into also being able to explore their eroticism with other women. This is my masculine side. So this is bringing them into those parts where they get to play with their dominant or their submissive and their sexuality in really a way that they've always wanted to, but they felt like a sense of guilt or shame. Or I particularly work with a lot of what I call boss babes. So women that are great at taking care of others. They are great at their purpose. They're great at helping others. They often have kids, and they're not so great about prioritizing their pleasure and prioritizing themselves and getting into their play. And then from that place, bringing that more into their work, right? Bringing that playfulness, that love, that intimacy, that sexual spark, that magnetism to the rest of their life. And so that's really what I'm offering right now, is a 3-month mystery school that I'm enrolling until February 18th. So if you feel called, you want to go to quingquing.com and you can send in an application. There's all sorts of information on the website there. And I'm enrolling right now until February 18th, and the course starts on March 1st. So and it's 12 weeks, 3 months, where you get to be with a really awesome rockin' group of women that are, I call them too much women that are often big in the reality, big in their purpose, and really want to move deeper into coming into loving themselves and learning how to make love with themselves, and then bringing that to their relationships and the world around them.
Beautiful, thank you. And again, we're putting in the website. A few comments just for you, Emily.
Thank you, Scott.
Natalie writes, "Thank you, Emily." Wendy, these are people in Unify. Wendy writes, "Yep, boss babes, integrate and learn inner alchemy." And Nicola
Yes.
writes, right? Nicola writes, "A superwoman," which is a very healthy, long-term way of being. So
Love
you get
it.
immediate responses there. And again, there's a question for the website, so we'll put the website back in a moment.
I want to say, so often we've grown up as women to really stifle ourselves and to not express ourselves and to accommodate and overgive and overcommit and abandon ourselves. So, and then we have shame and guilt around that. So a lot of it is working through the shame, guilt of what it means to come back into really learning what our pleasure is, because that's very unique to each and every one of us, right? Like, what does it mean to really fulfill our own pleasure in our body, and the way that we can love ourselves that we're either abandoned from, or that we've outsourced our pleasure, right? We outsource our pleasure with pleasing men, and doing the right thing, and not really being in our full own desire and own authenticity. So those are some of the things that we look at in our program.
And notice don't put a www in front of it. You got to just
No,
go with
quing
it.
quing.
It's best to copy it and paste is what I found works the best. It's like Emily, it's a.
Oh, you
Oh,
went
I'm
mute.
muted. Okay. Thank you, Emily. Well, while we're kind of on promotion and website, I'm going to bring Christina back on for a minute. And Christina has a book. And so we're going to go take a look at Christina's website. And it's
Books, actually.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
Yeah. One on self-love and one on supernatural love medicine.
Scott, you're muted.
Scott, we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry about
There
that.
we go. Yay.
Thank you. Try again. ChristinaFiore.com. ChristinaFiore.com. And everybody watching, go ahead and go there and sign up. Get on her mailing list. I'm certainly going to do that right now. And this is a way to find out about all things Christina. I'm submitting. There we go. And Christina, tell us a little bit about, are there particular places you'd like to have me direct the audience to while we're looking at your website?
Okay, well, if we go back to the homepage, and you scroll down just a little bit, keep going. These are the 2 books that I just held up.
Great.
And now just continue down if you would. And these are the 3 things that I really focus on is, the life coaching, how to really come from a heart-centered place, whether we're meeting challenges or within ourselves or in our relationships with others. So this is for individuals and professionals who really want to move forward in their life in a more empowered place. I get very, very raw and very honest with people. I'm accused of being a question asker because I like to go deep to discover what the core wounds are and the core stories that we tell ourselves that all the other stories and attraction principles are stacked on top of. So that's one area that I work very deeply with people on. And we always get to a place of empowerment. So that is an exciting place to be. And we bring a lot of joy into it and a lot of humor into the discovery. Can you go back? Because I can't remember.
Absolutely, yeah. I just wanted us to, because what you were saying was so interesting. So,
Oh, thank you. And then the personal healing, that is, for people that have gone through, I've worked with people that have gone through extraordinary trauma, and I'm sure all of us have. So I really love working with people in peeling that layer of the onion and really getting to the core essence of who people are, and really being able to look at life from that more spiritual vantage point. And in the personal healing, one of the things that I feel is really important to do is we start to talk about our past as the past, rather than, I have a lot of people that say, oh, I'm OCD. I said, you were OCD. When we're in the healing process, we start to really refer to things in the past matter-of-factly without engaging our emotions around it. What we want to engage our emotions in is what we want to own today, what we want to actualize, and what we want to embody and model. So that's a real process. I really work with people on a very deep level for putting things in the past and really owning and being engaged in the present, because that's where everything flows. And what we're doing then is creating a container for the future. So then the next piece of those three categories is relationships. And I've been focusing a lot of my love energy on relationships these days, working with people in sacred intimacy, really opening up empowered communications and healing the old wounds that have been the trajectory in people's lives. So it's been really rich to be able to work with couples, not only in a person-to-person level, in-person level, but also on Zoom sessions, follow-up sessions mainly, where we're really creating a new muscle on how to relate, how to discuss things in a way where we're we're bringing out the good in the person before we actually talk about something that's that's challenging for us. So in other words, I know in essence, you are a loving and generous person, but that didn't feel generous and loving to me. So you own what you're feeling, but you also acknowledge that there's a higher level in that person that you're wanting to connect with. So I really enjoy working with couples. I really enjoy the sacred intimacy part of working with couples, and also people who want to attract their soulmate.
beautiful. Thank you so much, Christina. It's great to meet you.
It's wonderful to meet you too. And thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me on, and Larissa for inviting me to be on with Scott and the rest of you and Emily and everybody. It's been an honor.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful to have you, Christina.
Thank you, love.
I'm going to read a couple more comments, and then Jerry has a little final something to say. And then we'll give each person a last minute or a last opportunity to share what they want to share. Natalie writes, thank you all. This has rejuvenated my heart, mind, and soul. I'm trying to make amends and love life and the amazing people with which I share space. I've experienced an enormous amount of abuse in my life, but you are all the light in this world. Thank you for reading the chat. Thank you for sharing with us such beautiful energy. So thank you, Natalie. That's really sweet. And somebody had asked about, when I talked a little bit about judgment, and there are a couple questions about that. I want to say that discernment is a wonderful alternative to judgment. It is important for us to set boundaries, to be discerning. All day long, we're making discernment, what we're going to eat, where we're going to put our time, where we're going to put our attention. So learning to discern without judge, at least that's my path. That's the path that I've been working on. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my buddy, Jerry Anderson, for a moment. Jerry, what do you got to say?
Well, a couple of insights that I've learned in my life that might be useful to other people is the first one is we oftentimes think that we want to be loved. The real truth is there's nothing so fulfilling as to love other people. And it's kind of like, the old line goes, you give what you get. So, I mean, you get what you give. So as you love other people, it's just natural that the karma comes back to you. But it's not seriously as fulfilling as when you love other people. And the other insight that I would like to share is that I realized this idea of you're supposed to love one person was a trap. That I had way more love than one person could ever hold, or maybe 10 people could ever hold. So that really freed me when I started loving different people for different reasons, for all different kinds of ways, so that my expression of love to more people than just one person or one situation kind of thing. That's my thought.
Those are beautiful thoughts. Thank you so much, Jerry. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give each of our people a chance for a final thought. We'll go to Emily, then Christina, and then we'll conclude with Louisa.
I just wanted to say just how grateful I am. And I think that's what I wanted to end with is, I've had a lot of challenges this last week come my way. And I think what's really been pulling me out is for this remembrance of gratitude and coming back into just appreciating the little things, appreciating the beauty of the sunlight and the warmth on my face, the ability to breathe, the ability to relish the small acts of love and experiences of intimacy. So just doing that work to affirm a gratitude practice. And often, it's like we really need it when it's the hardest in our lives, when it's hard to find elements of gratitude, is to make it the practice of slowing down and really finding and affirming that and remembering to cultivate that love. Thank you so much for everyone for having me on tonight, Scott.
Absolutely. And you're right. I mean, gratitude is the way out of hell. It is always the way out of hell.
Yeah.
Christina, any final thought that you'd like to share?
That's a hard act to follow. I think the word that comes to me that I'd like to leave with is grace. Just giving ourselves grace when we make mistakes, not be so hard on ourselves, and to give each other grace. We're going through a really, challenging time in history. And how are we going to make history is by really moving forward and giving grace as much as possible to one another, even when it's tough, even when somebody's being unkind, to choose to be kind in the face of unkindness, while we still can exercise our clear, healthy boundaries. Nobody needs to be a doormat. But the power of grace and the power of love is more powerful than dissension. And to be able to give each other grace, to walk in grace, and to really give ourselves grace, and embody that, I think is good supernatural love medicine.
That's beautiful, Christina. Thank you so much. Absolutely. Yeah. As Emily and Louisa know, because they hang out with me a little bit, my primary prayer is maximum grace. And I learned that from Yogananda. Yogananda said that really just the perfect prayer is just maximum grace for that person. Not praying for them to heal, praying for them to get the job, because we don't know if it's best for them to get the job, or even if it's best for them to heal. Just maximum grace. And it's a beautiful prayer. So thank you for bringing that up. Well, in the beginning, there was Larissa, and it was good. You are the Alpha and the Omega, my dear.
Oh my gosh. I was thinking, because I'm so inspired. I'm just inspired by this conversation, inspired by what Christina was sharing about humor. That's so absolutely true. Plays such a big, huge role in my life and in relationships, like when they're challenging. And, Emily, when you're just talking about gratitude and the importance of gratitude, like so profoundly, absolutely important in this conversation of love. And I want to say We come from love and we return to love because we are love.
Oh,
And we are here to embody love, to completely embody it and to make it real through this incredible opportunity to grow. That Mama Gaia is all about growth, right? Like everything is about growth. I mean, there's nothing that isn't. And if it doesn't grow, then it dies, right? And it leaves this dimension. So I absolutely celebrate our growth together, like how we're all here tonight, how we're growing together. I feel like there's exponential growth happening with all of us right now in this challenging, epic time that we're in. We're all going and having to grow in all these new ways that we haven't grown before. And that is actually, it makes it a really exciting time because it means that we can embody love like we never have even imagined was possible before. So I'm so grateful, Scott. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And we've got 2 more shows. We've got tomorrow night and we got Sunday morning, so we get to continue to play together. And tomorrow night, Emily's going to be back. And then Viraja Prema and the Goddess Circle. Well, this amazing group of goddesses that Larissa's bringing in. Eden Almadora is going to be coming in for the after show. For music, we're going to hear from Larissa tomorrow doing a special invocation. And then Chad Wilkins, who is coming all the way from Australia. He's a wonderful musical performer. He's been on the show before. And then finally, Deva Pramal and Meetan, who created a special video just for our show. And then Sunday morning, we're going to conclude. Again, it'll be Larissa and I with Dawn Light and Sean Renato. So stick around, everybody, this weekend. We've got a great, great series of shows. I'm going to go to gallery view so that we can see all of our friends. So turn your cameras on, everybody. And this gives us a chance to see all of our beautiful friends. There's Mark and Jeff and Terry and Lenore and Lynn and Leaf and all of you. So it's great to see all of you. And there's a lot of other people who haven't turned their cameras on, and we love you too.
We love you all.
Take care, everybody. Hope to see you all tomorrow night. Have a
Many
beautiful
blessings.
evening.
Love you.